the goal is that we set up our life so that no matter what stress we encounter, we don't use our dream body strategy to regulate our emotions, because that's the real issue with why we're sabotaging or why we're ghosting.
Welcome to the Body Energetics Podcast. I'm your host, 23-year fitness professional, 𝗂𝗲𝘀𝘁𝗲𝗃. I started my hero's journey of reconnecting with my inner child to heal my mind-body disorders 14 years ago. In this podcast, I share my 3-step system to renew your mind, regulate your emotions, and regenerate your body. Go to 𝗴𝗲𝘀𝘁𝗗𝗃 to join my free community, where each week we expand on the theme of the current episode so you can reconnect your mind-body to restore your physical health and create your desired aesthetic.
Welcome to Body Energetics Podcast, episode number 24. If this is your first time joining me and you're on YouTube, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you are listening to the audio on a podcast player, please follow this podcast, Body Energetics. I'm 𝗂𝗲𝘀𝘁𝗲𝗃. I'm your host, and I'm so excited to introduce to you what I think is a totally new format to use all of these amazing technology platforms to share our message. So again, if this is your first time here, I'd like to tell you a little bit about how this podcast works. This is basically a masterclass. This is the 3rd or 4th episode that I'm doing where I am laying out to you as if this was a paid class to share with you how your mindsets and your emotions are manifesting in illness and disease and injuries and flares, as well as how these thoughts and feelings are exhibiting themselves in your behavior on the range of ghosting, follow through, and sabotage when it comes to the habits that you need to form your dream body. So consider this a paid masterclass. Watch this, save this, rewind, do screenshots, do the whole thing, because there's going to be graphics coming in if you're watching the video version of this, because I really want you to understand and integrate the invisible world of energetics, which is thoughts and feelings that show up in the manifested material world of how our body is on a range of health and performance, as well as how our habits are either following through, sabotaging, or ghosting. When you listen to this episode, all the light bulbs that are going to go off in your head, all of the aha moments of like, oh my gosh, this makes total sense. Now I understand why I'm having these issues with my body or my behavior. Then you head over to my community, bodyenergetics.com. Because every single week we are deepening the conversation on the current podcast topic. That means that I can support you with the tools that I mentioned in this episode so that you can really start to see these changes in your life. bodyenergetics.com is a free platform where it's gamified coaching. The more you interact with the platform, the more your leaderboard goes up. And if you are one of the top 3 players of a particular month, you get access to a small group personal coaching call. I'm going to personally coach you in a small group setting. So a 3-person group coaching call on the first Saturday of every month at 8 a.m. Los Angeles time. And you earn it by you doing the work for yourself. So I'm going to mention tools in this episode so that you can go to the platform, grab the tools, watch the videos, do the integration work, post on our wall. Our wall is categorized if it's for mindset, or if it's for emotions, or if it's for your body, if it's for your wins, it's for general questions. It's so organized. And the reason why we have it organized so well is because we need organized automation when it comes to our body, which also has to do a lot with the episode topic that we're talking about today. So go to bodyenergetics.com, click to add yourself into the group, and then I'll approve it. I'll give you a little introduction on the wall, and then you'll get started with the very first module that says, getting started, start here. And then the next one, how to play the game. And then the next one, your emotional and energetic inventory so that we know where you're at. And then your next one, which is the goal setting. And then your next one, which is the module of your choice, using a tool that applies to the goal in the goal setting videos. It's so simple, you guys. You're going to freak out. And if you are an anxious person, You're going to love how I have it set up. If you're an avoidant person, you're going to love that it's gamified because that's going to give you incentive. So the anxiety is going to feel good that everything is organized for you. All you have to do is literally check a box. And for the avoidance, you're going to be like, if I show up, I will get rewarded. Perfect, right? Okay, thank you, school.com, for creating this amazing platform. And if you're listening to the audio, I just had fireworks go off on my Zoom screen. That was so cool. So let's get into this week's podcast episode / masterclass topic. We're talking about automating to regulate. Let me get my notes. Automate to regulate with daily nutritional commitments. So the daily nutritional commitment is something that I learned from 𝗂𝗫𝘀𝘁𝗲𝗏 of Moderation 365 because I had some circuitry meltdown in my brain when my training partner had lovingly said, if you don't eat pancakes, because I ate pancakes every Saturday, if you don't eat pancakes for a month, you'll have your 6-pack. Let me tell you, it was not about the pancakes that set me off. It was that I was training really hard. This is all hindsight, right? 2020. I was training really hard and my calories were pretty low. I could have increased my calories and probably still would have been getting results. So I think my calories were a little too low. And because I was in that deficit, and because I looked forward to the ritual of our Saturday workout and pancakes, that was like my emotional outlet with food. It was a social time for me. Food is cultural, right? So in my mind, that's actually what I was losing. I wasn't losing the pancake. I was losing the thing that was getting me through this deficit that I could possibly have been too low of a calorie for the amount of weights that I was moving on that weekly basis. What happened was I just can explain it by short circuiting. I just lost all sense of direction. I was on such a massive wobble, as they say, when we're facing duality. And it was really difficult for me to get a diet or a deficit mindset back on. It took 15 months. 15 months, okay? And I'm a professional. I bought this program called Moderation 365 months prior because I realized I was going to have clients that didn't want to do macros. So I thought, okay, I know how the macros work. I should get something to learn intuitive eating so I can teach it to my clients who maybe don't want to do macros. Well, then lo and behold, when I short-circuited, I was on the freeway and I was like, oh, I have the Moderation 365 course. I need to take it for me. So over the course of 2 weekends, I listened to all of these trainings, all of the old archived group calls, so I could really get it in my body to understand what is it to eat to satisfaction. And so the DNCs are part of this methodology where we have a daily nutritional commitment, just 3 things that is either a food or a ritual that we stick to. And that is going to help us with our aesthetic goals, especially the fat loss goals. So the topic of this episode is that we want to automate as many things in our life so that we can regulate, because the magic secret sauce to getting your dream body to come true, whether it means that your dream body is healthy, if it means it's out of chronic pain, or if it means it is the slamming aesthetic that you think is the sexiest version of yourself. Whatever your dream body is, emotional regulation is key, because emotional regulation has to do with your nervous system, and your nervous system is the thing that governs your whole body. And the funny thing about the nervous system and the brain governing your whole body, yes, it's mindset, but your emotional centers are in the brain. So the emotional regulation is actually part of the mindset. And so often we've seen it as something separate. Automate to regulate, automate to regulate, automate to regulate. That's what I want you to think of, because the more we can automate our life, and we'll get into this in more anxious episodes, because for the anxious attachment to the dream body, we really need to understand what the relationship is with the tools so that we don't use the tools to inflict self-harm. That's where the anxious person goes. The avoidant person goes, manifest excuses, quote unquote excuses, I'm not judging you, but reasons why you can't follow through. So the avoidant is a different type of system that's going off. So for the anxious person, we need less rules. For the avoidant person, we kind of need more rules. What I want to share with you in this episode is that the anxiety is the parentification of the dream body. So let's do a quick overview of attachment theory. Attachment theory is module number 18 of the tools. So you're going to pop into that module when you're finished with this episode. In attachment theory, from the romantic perspective, is however we were treated by our caregivers. That's what we are going to embody if like we're the same sex. So we might act like our moms if we're a female, and then we may be attracted to a partner that treated us the way our dads did, and then vice versa. I'm excluding non-heterosexual or non-binary people because I do not have that experience, and I'm not exactly certain of how that shows up. Although when we're talking about it from an energetic perspective of a same-sex parenting institution of a nuclear family, it could be whichever person, whichever parent is embodying more of the masculine leadership, validation energy, and who is embodying more of the nurturing, becoming, and sympathetic witnessing of the feminine. So however you want to look at it, okay? The gist of it is that we end up being like a parent and being attracted to the type of person our parent was. And when this really goes nuts, when we have an insecure attachment in our childhood experience, when we have sex with somebody too soon and we create the physical bond and the nervous system bond in that act without establishing a secure mental emotional bond, the attachment fears of abandonment, of neglect, of rejection go off in the now body's physical nervous system, and then interprets whatever that partner does as an attack, a threat, or a way in which we're going to have some sense of loss or invalidation or deal with our not enough issues based on that person's behavior, whether they're just being themselves and it has absolutely nothing to do with you, but you're interpreting it that way, or both of you are insecure in different ways, and both of your insecure attachment styles of being afraid of loss and threat and whatever, they're both energetically interacting with each other to where your conscious human adult beingness of yourselves are like, what the fuck is happening? I don't understand what's happening. We keep fighting. We're not connecting. It's because it is your unconscious behaviors that are in conflict with each other. This is what happens when we have sex prematurely, because we are not noticing that we have our physical body, emotional body, mental body, and spiritual bodies. We're just looking at the physical one, making that connection, and not understanding that there are other layers to our interdimensional, multifaceted human being that are being affected by that act. You with me? Okay, good. So in the context of having premature sex and having an insecure attachment style, then the partner becomes the parent. The partner triggers us the same way we felt that insecure love attachment to our parent. And then that's when the relationship devolves. So what I've noticed in connecting all of these dots is that our dream body gets parentified. And as the anxious, I exhibit, we all have anxious parts, avoidant parts, narcissistic parts, good parts, worthy parts, all the parts. We are multifaceted, right? So in my anxious style to the dream body, I noticed that I made the dream body becoming match the fantasy of some of the feelings that I had that were similar to the fantasy I had of the perfect partner that was going to undo or fill in all the gaps that I had from my early childhood. When we are fantasizing about our goals, right? We're goal-oriented people. We set a target and we're really after the feeling that the achievement of the goal is going to give us. The feeling sensation that we have when we're visualizing ourselves in our dream body or with the perfect partner that chemical and fantasy are the same, the perfect partner in the dream body. So for the anxious person, the tools become the thing that get weaponized. Like when you're in an insecure partnership, it could be the feelings and the judgments that get weaponized, where you point the finger at the other person for what they're not doing right for you, when it's really your shit to deal with and they're just being themselves. So I really want you to think about this in your anxious parts of, wow, yeah, when I think about my goal of the dream body, how do I feel about what my life is going to be like, what my work, my income, my attraction to my attractiveness to other people, what is that going to look like in the dream body? Because that's your energetic component of what we're dealing with, of what the anxious part is afraid of losing or being proven that we are not good enough to experience. And I want to introduce you to the idea that you can think about the diet as the premature sex, because the sex is something that we're thinking is going to give us the secure bond. The person's going to be in love with us. We're going to be together, right? The diet, in terms of what we think the diet is going to do, we believe the diet is going to get us to our dream outcome. We're going to burn the fat. We're going to see our muscles. We're going to see this beautifully sculpted body that's lean. We probably are someone who doesn't really like to jiggle too much on the beach. We might be a little bit self-conscious of our roles. And we're like, oh my God, if that could all just be gone because of this diet, perfect, I'll be set. And then a lot of times, I don't know if you're like me and you do this, you visualize your dream body aesthetic while you're eating your favorite food, your pizza, your burger, your whatever. So we make this like crazy scenario in our head that the diet is going to be the sure thing to get us to the dream body. And once we're in the dream body, we're going to be able to do all the things that we can't do now, which none of it is true. So the first thing that I want you to think about is that the diet is equivalent to the premature sex in our mind about the connection to love and validation. Okay. So then what happens is the attachment now that we've created with the diet, with the strategy. If you're doing some sort of a mail order company that they ship you juices and pre-made meals, whether you're doing a multi-level marketing company or a direct sales program that has boxed food that you add water and microwave or a shake or whatever, whether you're doing macros, whether you're doing keto, carnivore, vegan, whatever it is, whatever way that you are dieting, meaning that you're eating whatever it is that you're eating, but you're being in a calorie deficit so that you can burn the fat that's on your body instead of burn the new fuel that you're taking in through food. Whatever way you're doing the deficit, that is where we get needy. That's where we are like constantly checking the MyFitnessPal if we're tracking our macros, where we're constantly looking at our auto ship, where we're constantly planning out our meals, where we are so fine combing our habits that now it's obsessive. This is the needy energy of needing to do this thing perfectly, this diet perfectly, because doing the diet perfectly means that I will get to my goal. And the doing the diet perfectly also means that if I do it right, if I am not wrong, I am worthy, I am deserving of this dream body and all of the amazing things that are going to come with it. This is a child mindset that is being applied to the diet, to the dream body, because of our insecure attachment when times we had that we ruptured with our caregiver, or that we had an experience that emotionally we did not understand. We had nobody to witness this experience and validate our feelings, which therefore invalidated our reality, which left us to our own faculties of an underdeveloped, immature brain that made sense of this sensation in the body, aka a feeling, aka an emotional range of vibration of information, mean about our worth and whether we did something wrong and what we should have done. Fantasy starts to get creative of what should have happened, or how this emotion is making us feel like we are bad. That's what's driving the obsessive attachment to the diet for the promised outcome of the dream body and all the things that we think that dream body is going to give us. So if that's the mindset that we're dealing with, what happens then is we're following this strategy so perfectly and with so much angst, needy energy, because we need it to work, because that dream body is going to make us feel validated. Life happens. Work happens. Your PMS happens. Your dog gets sick happens. Your cat, your bird, something happens. It's life. And because we have so much energy going into this diet, when we go to do the diet things that we have blown so far out of proportion, because of the new stress from life, we can't actually keep up with what the needy energy started to create. So instead of us being regulated and responding to the stress and being like, oh shit, work is requiring a lot more of my time. My animal is requiring a lot more of my time. So because I care about this, and this is the thing that's in need right now, where do I need to shift around some of my other stuff that I have to pull energy from? We don't do that if we're not regulated. What we do in this child mental emotional state is we short circuit. I love thinking about it as short circuiting. That's just the way it feels to me. Like when I get triggered, and then it's like all the gears in my head feel like they fall apart, and I'm like inside my brain trying to pick up all these little gears and like put it back together so it'll start running again. Instead of us being regulated, we short circuit. And instead of us just taking one load off of our diet habit, we take all of the load off. And because we're so stressed out about this other area of life, and we're so focused and needy attached to the tool, the next time we go to the tool, we think the tool or the diet is the problem. And because this is unconscious, we think this is the problem, that this is the real issue from my stress. But the real issue of your stress is that you're not regulated and you're not in your adult body to handle all of life. You are a 7-year-old at the moment. And because this 7-year-old is so attached to the tool to get to the dream body because of what that dream body fantasy is going to deliver, you think the tool is the problem. And the way these little tricky mindsets work is that the real problem is you facing the gaps in the sad, negative emotions that inner child is trying to escape by having the dream body. So in order to not feel those things and take a step back and be like, holy crap, I have like 3 things in the other areas of the wheel of life going off right now. And the 4th thing, which is my diet that I'm really attached to, whoa, why am I so attached to this? And why is this the thing that I want to sabotage? Instead of actually going into those feelings and handling shit and facing that you aren't quite equipped to handle all the stress, which means there's gaps in your maturity, which means you have to do some inner work to bring yourself up to par with the totality of your life right now. Instead of doing that, the ego, which you could also say is your shadow or your inner angry teenager, that comes in to negotiate and be like, you're so stressed out right now. My God, can you just give it a break? Just eat the cupcake. But you know what? It tastes so good. Just eat 2 cupcakes. So we end up negotiating with the tool. So whatever food item that you've been restricting or whatever strategy you've been using, like tracking your macros, all of a sudden you're just like, I just need an untracked meal. And then your untracked meal turns into an entire day being untracked. Or you took yourself off sugar because you're doing the carnivore diet and you've done so well the last 3 weeks on your carnivore diet. You're so stressed out. This is the time where you can really use that cupcake right now. So your shadow comes in on the behalf of the inner child. that does not want to have the reality come face to face that the reason why I'm so needy with this tool is because this is how bad I feel about myself. That's what the protection is. And because we've parentified the dream body, and because we've used the diet as premature sex, then this whole physical body and nervous system, mental and emotional body, they're all like garbled up into one big knot of yarn, not making any sense to the conscious mind of how to stay calm when we're stressed out. And the like real life personal development phrase for this is decision fatigue. So in Moderation 365, which is module number 7 of the body energetic system, I share with you how the reasons why mentally we don't stick with the diet come Friday afternoon, Friday night, or through the weekend, or when something stressful happens, is because we've reached decision fatigue. We've put so much energy into the diet and into the strategy that when we really need some extra energy for another area of life that needs your attention, you don't have any energy for it. So then the thing that goes is the thing that is holding the most energy, your strategy. So this could look like at the end of the day, you're constantly overeating, or it could look like the weekends that you're constantly eating. But the real life, non-inner child, energetic consciousness perspective is called decision fatigue. And people with anxiety suffer a lot with decision fatigue, because it is the decision, the deciding of cutting off one or the other. That's a decision, one or the other. That is mental energy. And if we have so many decisions to make, and the decisions are going to give us the outcome of moving towards or moving away from our dream body, which really means moving towards or away from validation, which really means that's finally going to let us know that we're an okay person deep down at that inner child level. That's all energy. Emotion is energy in motion. All of that power is in the tool. So you have all this power, if you could visualize it as this big, beautiful, glowing ball of energy. And your decision, just the word decision, if you can envision your decision like a net, the decisions are surrounding this ball of energy. And it's like energy moves, right? It's supposed to be fluid, it's supposed to be, it's a wave. It's not a particle. It's not solid. It's a wave. It's motion. So if there's a net on top of something that's supposed to be in motion, like, wouldn't that make you feel nuts and anxious? So the decision fatigue makes us take the net off of all of this energy around the diet and the strategy so that we can consume that energy. And the consumption happens in the form of food, but it's an energetic hunger. It's an emotional hunger that we're trying to get rid of. So if we can eat our way through it and suppress that inner child feeling, because the inner angry teenager is like, don't deal with this, don't look, because if you look, you're going to have to face this emotion. Then you get to eat the emotion. You don't have to deal with it. But then you will eventually go through your shame spiral and your guilt spiral. And however long it takes you to get out of that, then you're going to start over with another diet or start again on Monday, right? Been there, done that many times. So what I'd like you to consider the DNCs, the daily nutritional commitments. Now, I'd like to share with you what they are. Number one, they are a food or a ritual, something that you are doing every single day. It'll take a little while for you to figure out what these are, because we have like different schedules and we feel like different people depending on the time of month we're in. So you can like factor that stuff in. So in other words, don't feel like you're going to listen to this episode and go to the module and then be like, I have to know my 3 DNCs today. No, you're going to find out what they are over time. So they're a food or a ritual. And there's just 3 things. We're only hitting 3 things so that we avoid the decision fatigue. That's the real life scenario. We are avoiding decision fatigue so that by the end of the day, we don't burn out and eat everything in the kitchen. And by the end of the week, we don't burn out and eat everything over the weekend. This is the real life tangible outcome. We're avoiding decision fatigue. And then number 3, we get a mental dopamine hit of satisfaction. If your anxious parts are very active, they love to make a list and check the boxes, because crossing something or checking a box makes us feel a reward, the dopamine reward. So we're going to get that on a daily basis by just hitting 3 things. And it's going to get your high payoff energetically. So let me tell you what a high payoff is. A high payoff, in the context of where I learned it, was with joint mobility. You have mechanonerve They're a bunch of little nerves, not just a single nerve, a whole bunch of them, like a bouquet of flowers, clustered at the joints. So when you do a big joint exercise, like a hip exercise, like a butt exercise, to your nervous system, you are integrating the mind-body really fast because of how big that joint is and how many mechanonerve receptors are in their little bouquets. And the more you move your body, the more these nerves branch off, which is where we get the saying, if you don't move it, you lose it. This is real. You got to move your body so that you can keep it. So what I think about with these 3 DNCs is that these are my high payoffs for my energy, because my DNCs, I'll share them with you, give me so much energy and they give me so much satisfaction. I am talking about a physical taste of satisfaction, but I'm also talking about the dopamine hit that for my anxious parts at the end of the day, I'm like, pat on my back, good job. You did your 3 DNCs, you are killing it. And whenever you can say you're killing it when you're doing something for your aesthetic, it gives you the internal validation and it gives you power to keep going, because you're validating yourself on the way. You're not waiting until the outcome of your dream body to say, yes, you're worthy of this body. You are constantly giving yourself worthiness the entire time by recognizing, by validating your effort. Number 5, they need to be easy, effortless, and enjoyable. Easy, effortless, and enjoyable. The whole point is so that you don't have to think. You want to automate your life as much as possible, especially with your food, so you don't have to think about it. It does not require effort. You enjoy the process of eating it, like the ritual, or you enjoy the food itself, and it's effective. Okay? It's going to move the dial forward in some way. Number 6, it crowds out the junk. This is something that I've realized recently, that when I'm focused on those 3 DNCs, I have a secondary awareness that happens that when I go to eat junk, which I eat junk every single day, but my junk portions are smaller and more consistent because I'm not doing anything out of deprivation. And the crowding out of the junk happens because when you have a daily nutritional commitment that you really enjoy, that enjoyment has the same emotional experience as your junk. So you need less of the junk because you've already figured out a way to make something that's less junky enjoyable. And then number 7, it has switched my brain to how can I make this more satisfying? So my inner hunger has been satisfied by the amount of compassionate witnessing I've been able to have for myself in some triggers and in some of the inner work that I'm doing. So instead of before, if I was telling you this 6 months ago, I would be talking about how I sit higher on the volume scale, that I want to feel full. But the feeling of fullness can come from the inner hunger, the emotional hunger. So since I've been regulating my nervous system, and because I've gotten so consistent with my 3 DNCs, I actually ask the question all day long, every time I eat, how can I make this more satisfying? and I make it more satisfying, sticking to mostly my anti-inflammatory list, because there are still some things that bother my lower GI tract. And I look for things that are going to give me the most bang for my buck. So I love peanut butter, but instead of having full fat peanut butter, I have the PB Fit peanut butter powder that I mix with non-fat Greek yogurt. And then that's what I put on my rice cake, or that's what I dip my apple in. So I'm constantly looking for ways, how can I make this more satisfying? And that's been really, really cool. My DNCs are a gallon of water. So I have a really beautiful, this one is luminescent, iridescent, opalescent cup. And I have this one at the office, and I have a cup at home. They're what, like 20 ounces or something. And then I have my gallon water jug that I never put my mouth on so I don't get it contaminated with any bacteria. I fill up my water every single day from the refrigerator, and I've got my cup at the office and I got my cup at home. So I don't have to lug a cup back and forth, because this makes it so much easier to drink out of a straw and to keep refilling this. There's also a satisfaction factor to be like, oh my God, I need to refill my cup again. So I have my gallon of water, and I noticed that when I got lazy on the weekends and wasn't drinking my gallon on the weekends, Monday I was dragging. I was like half the woman I am. And I was like, what's different? And I'm like, oh, because I don't prioritize my water on the weekends. So gallon of water for me is one of my daily nutritional commitments. The other two have a ritual component to it. So the first one is my big ass breakfast. You want to hear the ritual? This is the ritual, okay? I am so excited that I have this ritual, because there was a time where I woke up between 3:30 a.m. and 4:15 a.m. to drive an hour to work, sometimes have to drop off dogs and food at my mom's house, then continue driving to my gym. My fantasy at that time was to have a leisurely morning where I didn't have to use an alarm clock. I'm there. I set an alarm on Tuesdays and Fridays because that's when I see morning clients. But I usually wake up before that alarm clock goes off, and I love it so much. It feels so luxurious to just let my body wake up on its own. It's usually plenty. It's half hour to 45 minutes before I actually have to get up, and that just feels so good. So that's just something I want to share with you, that like dreams can come true. You don't have to wake up in the middle of the night, eventually maybe. So in this ritual, it's all about connecting with my dogs. So I wake up in the morning, I do a meditation, I go to the bathroom, pop back in bed, listen to a meditation to get me in my body and get me centered. And then I go downstairs and I put the pan on, start heating the pan. I save bacon grease. I put a little bit of bacon grease in it because when I put bacon in the pan, it tends to stick to it. So I just put a little bit of bacon grease from the day before in the pan. I get that nice and hot. I let the dogs out. I give my 3 Wheaten Terriers a snuggle and a kiss. And then they come into the kitchen with me. They don't even go out for a potty. They're so crazy. Then I put the bacon on. I get the coffee started. Bacon gets done. I'm sometimes giving the dogs their glucosamine and stuff. And when the bacon's done, I set the bacon on the paper towel, drain out the excess bacon grease. I already have chopped vegetables. I have a container of finely chopped onions. I use a chop press, so I don't even have to do it with a knife. I have chopped mushroom and chopped zucchini. So I take a 1/4 cup of onion, throw it in the pan, let it get brown. I do 2 cups of chopped mushrooms, get those cooked pretty good. Then I put in 2 cups of the chopped zucchini because I don't want the zucchini to get too watery. So you got to put that in a little bit after the mushrooms get some cooking on them. So then I have those. So I have 4 1/4 cup of vegetables in this big ass breakfast. Once that's cooked, I pour in 16 ounces of egg whites. I cover it, reduce the heat to low. And then when I see that it's almost cooked, I turn the heat off. I leave the lid on while I'm cleaning stuff up and let that cook and settle with no heat on it. Then I go over to my scale. I chop up 100 grams, 200 grams of potato, separate them into 100-gram piles. and then measure a 20-gram chunk of a third fat cream cheese into two 20-gram chunks. So it's 40 grams total. And then I go on the pan and I gently cut the egg in half, put half of that pan fill of egg, kind of looks like a frittata, into one container, then the other container. I put the potatoes on top, then I put the cheese in. I leave them out because I don't want to put them in the fridge to change the temperature of the fridge and make the refrigerator work too much harder. I usually, by that time now, it's ready for me to get dressed. I put on my makeup, I do my hair, and then I go to the gym. And while I'm doing all that stuff, I'm eating 2 pieces of bacon. So I'm snacking on my bacon while I'm cooking and while I'm drinking my coffee. And then I go to the gym. And then when I'm done with the gym and I come to the office, I eat my first portion of that big ass breakfast around 10, 11. Set my alarm for 2.5 hours, eat a snack or eat the next segment of that meal. And the whole point is that I had consumed, usually before 3 p.m., 4.25 cup of vegetables and 60, 75 grams of protein. If we aim to get 100 grams of protein, that's great. So for me, this big ass breakfast separated into 2 meals gives me the ritual of this luxurious morning, and it gives me all my nutrients. So then at the end of the day, whatever I ate, which one of my favorites is air fried breaded chicken. So it's like chicken nuggets dipped in the 𝗵𝗵𝘀𝗀𝗱 peanut butter. My God, so good. So by the end of the day, if I don't eat vegetables again at the end of the day, I'm like, I'm good. I had 4.25 cups of vegetables today. It's fine. There is such a lightness in the attainment of my dream body doing it this way. Now, my third DNC is also ritualistic, and it is something that I really enjoy. There's this honey citron ginger tea that you can use it as a jam, or you could put a couple of teaspoons into hot water and make a tea. So I take a big tablespoon or a teaspoon sometimes, depending on how much I ate that day. Sometimes I go for the tablespoon. Sometimes I'm like, oh, like maybe I should cut back a little bit and just do a teaspoon. And then I also have an ounce of what's called Ionic Supreme from Isagenix. It's a multi-level marketing company. They've got great nutrition products. I am not selling it to you. I do not run it as a business, but I do eat it. The Ionic Supreme is adaptogenic herbs. So that means that they are herbs that adapt to the status of your nervous system at the time that you're eating it. And so that means that, like, if you need more energy, they're going to adapt to you to give you more energy. If you are ready to go to bed and it's time to calm down, they're going to adapt to you and help you get a good night's sleep. So I have an ounce of that, and then I have that ginger citron tea. And it tastes good. There's probably like 50 calories in it or something. So it does count. It does have sugar. It does count. But it is so freaking good. And so those 3 things, my gallon of water, my big ass breakfast that I separate into 2 meals, and my tea at night, I feel so, so good. So good. And so that's going to help us automate so we can regulate. Because what the goal is that we set up our life so that no matter what stress we encounter, we don't use our dream body strategy to regulate our emotions, because that's the real issue with why we're sabotaging or why we're ghosting. Because the avoidant is going to take a look at the strategy and be like, I can't, I'm too busy. Life needs me. And then the anxious is going to be like, oh my God, give me everything. Give me a pound of seized candy. I need to eat. We regulate with it or we regulate without it. We're doing the abandoning. We are doing the consumption, right? Like the avoidant is afraid of being consumed in relationships, and the anxious is afraid of being abandoned. So then we go and do that to the food, which ultimately impacts an avoidant or an anxious relationship with our dream body. So I'd love for you to take this all into consideration. And the tools is module number 4, setting and achieving your goal. So if you go to the bodyenergetics.com website, you'll go to number 4. Definitely watch the welcome video first, though. And then the second tool is number 7, where you're going to learn about moderation 365. And then, of course, module 18, attachment theory, so that you can really start to see these patterns. We're taking the invisible world and making it visible. And this episode was all about our behavior. There'll be other episodes where we're looking at the manifestation on the range of health and illness, of performance and aesthetic, and then like really fucking hating our body. Okay. So we'll be doing that on other episodes. If this was helpful, I would so love for you to comment below. If you're on a podcast player, give us a 5-star rating and review, and like put a little note of like how this was helpful. Share it with your friends. Tag me on social media at Body Energetics with an X, or at 𝘂𝗲𝘀𝗻𝗃. And if you've been at the edge of your seat wondering what these post-its are, we officially have 6 members in the Body Energetics community. So this wall is going to be filled with beautiful colored post-its of all the beautiful people, men and women, non-binary. Everybody is welcome. Everybody has a body. So this is not exclusive to women. Men can join. Men need this too. We all need this. So you can join at any time. I'd love to see you there, and then especially deep in the conversation if you recognized any of your anxious parts in this masterclass. Just call it a masterclass. All right, I'll see you in the group.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you found it helpful, please give me a 5-star rating and review. Share it with your friends. Tag me on social media at Body Energetics with an X, or at 𝘂𝗲𝘀𝘁𝗲𝗱, and I'll reshare you to my story. We'll see you in the Body Energetics community at 𝘂𝗲𝘀𝘁𝗲𝗃.com.